Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Today's video is going to be centered around book shopping, which as we all know is so exciting. And this is especially exciting because I am home. If you can't tell, I'm in a different background. So I'm home at my parents' house on Long Island. I live in Boston and I don't have a car in Boston, so I can never drive to any of the big bookstores like Barnes & Noble because, like I said, I don't have a car. Sometimes I can go on the weekends like with my boyfriend or something and he can drive me. But usually I don't have access to Barnes & Noble. I also, there are some smaller bookstores in the city, but honestly, not that many good ones. So there's not really any options in walking distance either. So pretty much when I'm in Boston, book shopping is not that accessible. So I like to take advantage of being home where I can drive my car wherever I want to go, especially Barnes & Noble. So that is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to drive to Barnes & Noble, and I also saw that there's a new bookstore, more of a local, cell phone, I don't know, smaller business bookstore in the same town that the Barnes & Noble is in. So I think I'll stop by that one after and just do some book shopping today. And I don't want to buy too many books today. My mission isn't to buy a bunch of books. It's more to just do the shopping, do the browsing, have a morning. But I think I'll buy one book at each store. That's my plan. And for Barnes & Noble, I think it would be super fun to buy a book that I've never heard of before, I've never seen before, I've never seen anyone talk about it on YouTube, TikTok, anything like that. I just want to do some browsing and pick up a book that I think sounds good. Because I've been floating this idea around in my brain for a while to do a video around it, and I thought it would be a perfect combination of two video ideas into one for this, book shopping and reading a book I've never seen anything about on ever. So that is what I'm going to do. I find that I'm often just reading books that people recommend, and I just want to read books that I find and I think I might enjoy. I want to do that more often. I feel like that is what reading is kind of all about. So that is the secondary mission of this video. And I'm thinking I'm gonna do fantasy because I'm in the mood for a good fantasy book and I'm almost overwhelmed with options to go to. I do not know which book to choose next because I feel like there's so many recommendations and so many series and so many people love so many different ones and it's just too much for me. I feel like it'll be perfect for me to just go into the fantasy section of Barnes & Noble and read the backs of the books and see what I like, pick one up and go with it, to hopefully find a new fantasy series I love or just a fantasy author or just one fantasy book. Who knows? That is the game plan. Maybe I'll get to the bookstore and feel like I'm not in the mood for fantasy anymore, but that is what my plan is. And then I think in the second half of this video, I will do a little reading vlog of me reading that book. It's not gonna be super in depth, but I'll probably read the book, show you guys some clips and my thoughts on it. Okay, we have arrived. We are here. I'm about to go in. I actually honestly have never recorded or vlogged myself in public, so it might be a little shaky in there. I don't know what I'm gonna be able to get. It'll probably just be clips of the bookshelves and the books. You probably won't see me setting up my tripod and walking around, but I hope you enjoy anyway. I'll try to get a bunch of shots. First stop complete. I'm going to debrief everything later when I get home, but we got this book and I'm very excited about it. Okay, that store was literally the cutest. I think I could have walked around there for hours. I probably spent like 20 minutes in there, and this was one of the first books that I saw, and I spent another 20 minutes looking around, but this was always at the back of my mind. So it's what I picked up because it has been a book on my list for a while, which means I'll probably read it sooner. Like, I just feel better buying books if I've been thinking about them for a long time. And this is Finlay Donovan is Killing It. She gave me a little bookmark, and it's a super cute bookmark because it's a cute little store. Love it. I always love a new bookmark. Now we are going home. Okay, I am back from book shopping and I had so much fun. I think it was like 2 hours and I was just like aimlessly strolling around the shelves, reading all of the backs of the books. I was just having such a good time. And yeah, I got 2 books as you saw. I got An Ember in the Ashes from Barnes & Noble. This is the fantasy book that I have never heard of that I was on a mission to find, and I found it. And then I also got Finlay Donovan is Killing It, but I'm gonna talk about this one first. So in Barnes & Noble, I was very focused on the fantasy sections. I did see Emily Henry's new book, Funny Story, and Taming Seven by Chloe Walsh, but I had both of those pre-ordered delivered to my apartment in Boston. So unfortunately, I think they were both delivered the day I left to come here. So that is a little annoying, but I will get back to those when I get back to Boston. I'm actually filming a reading vlog with those. It is going to be part of my April releases series. I did part 1 and that is already posted. That's going to be part 2 where I'm just reading a bunch of April new releases because April is like a hot month for new releases. The first part had Wild Love by Elsie Silver and Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. So if you want to see my thoughts on that, check out that video and then stay tuned for Emily Henry's new release and Chloe Walsh's new release. But anyway, I didn't grab those books, so I was focused on fantasy. And first I went to this like, I don't know, like end of aisle shelf where I know they have a lot of fantasy, like adult fantasies and like science fiction books. And I found a book that I was very interested in. It was my front runner for like almost my entire time in the store. And it was called, Starbringer, and it was sort of science fiction-y, like futuristic. It definitely said like adult romantasy, like it had all of those things going. It seemed very interesting. It gave me The 100 vibes. I don't know if you guys have ever watched that TV show, but it was like a very futuristic TV show where people had to leave Earth because it was uninhabitable. So they went up to this spaceship and they lived in there and whatever. Pretty much the vibes were very similar. Okay, I switched my spot because the sun was like fading in and out weirdly when I was positioned the other way. But I'll give you guys a little summary about that book that was my front runner for a while because I think I will read it eventually. Like, it's on my list. I do want to buy it. And in case you guys are interested in it. It says, Firefly meets The Breakfast Club in this snarky new adult romance. The sun is dying and it's happening way too damn fast. With the clock ticking, the 9 planets' only hope of survival rests on a fancy space station and the alien artifact it's carrying, which is why it really sucks when some jackass doesn't want the universe saved and blows that station up while you're still on it. So if your only choices are flaming death or stealing a flying hunk of space junk, you pick that busted-ass spaceship, even if it leaves 7 strangers with deadly secrets trapped together. A princess, a prisoner, a con artist, a warrior, a priestess, a mercenary, and an asshole in charge of us all. Now every faction in the galaxy is hunting the ship, from the sisterhood to the corporation, and the rebellion's joining in on the fun too. We just need to stop drinking, fighting, and screwing long enough to evade them all and save the freaking universe somehow. I don't know, it really caught my attention, that little description, and I was very interested in the book, but it was expensive. It was like a big, thick hardback, and it was like $30. I looked it up, and I think it was like available on Book Outlet for maybe $10 or less. So that was definitely a reason why I didn't end up choosing it. But I also found this that I was more intrigued in. Like, I was picking up a bunch of different books and none of them were beating out Starbringer for my like interest. However, I got to the young adult fantasy section because I do like young adult fantasies. I think that they are easier to understand, easier to dive into. Like, recently I tried to get into an adult fantasy and I immediately like closed the book because I was like, this is just too much for me. So I thought I would go to that section, check it out. And this was actually one of the last books I saw. I saw 4 books and it was all the books in this series, just one of each. And I was like, let me look at that. I picked it up and I read the back and I was like, yes, this sounds so interesting. So I'm gonna read the back for you guys right now. Leia is a slave, Elias is a soldier, neither is free. Under the Marshall Empire, defiance is met with death. Leia and her family do not challenge the Empire. They've seen what happens to those who do. But when Leia's brother is arrested for treason, she is forced to make a decision. In exchange for help from rebels who promise to rescue her brother, she will risk her life to spy for them from within the Empire's greatest military academy. There, Leia meets Elias, the school's finest soldier, and secretly its most unwilling. He and Leia will soon realize that their destinies are intertwined and that their choices will change the fate of the Empire itself. So in the back of my mind, I was kind of searching for a like heavy on the romance fantasy, and I feel like this will do that because it's about two main characters, and like I feel like they're kind of gonna be like star-crossed lovers, and that's what I love in a fantasy. And then I also read a bunch of little like author reviews or notes that made me very interested in this series. It says, an epic fantasy debut about an orphan fighting for her family and a soldier fighting for his freedom. It's a story that's literally burning to be told. Fast-paced, well-structured, and full of twists and turns, An Ember in the Ashes is an evocative debut that has left me invested in knowing what happens next. I don't know, it's just exactly what I'm looking for, and I've never heard anything about it before. I've never seen it, but it is in a series, and I love a good fantasy series. I feel like I could get really invested, and while I was in the bookstore, I could like picture myself wanting to open this book up immediately, and I do. That's what I'm gonna do this afternoon, tonight, so I'm really excited for this. It just sounds really good, and it was also in the YA section again, which are always cheaper, so I think this book was literally like $13, and the other one was $30, so I was like, I'm gonna go with the cheaper one and then order the other one online for a less expensive price. So I'm so excited for this. Let me know if you guys have ever read this book, what you think about it, because I've never seen anything. I've never heard anything. And then the second book, I'm not gonna talk as much about because the other book is what like the rest of this video is gonna be focused on, the second half. But I did get this book. I've been seeing it everywhere. I think it's like mystery thriller, but also like comedy, kind of like a silly thriller type of book. I'll read you guys the back again. It says, Finley Donovan is killing it, except she's really not. As a stressed out single mom of two and a struggling novelist, Finley finds her life in chaos. When Finley is overheard discussing the plot of her new suspense novel with her agent over lunch, she's mistaken for a contract killer and inadvertently accepts an offer to dispose of a problem husband. Finley soon discovers that crime in real life is a lot more difficult than its fictional counterpart as she becomes tangled in a murder investigation. Fast-paced, deliciously witty, and wholeheartedly authentic in depicting the frustrations and triumphs of motherhood, Finley Donovan is Killing It is the first in a brilliant new series from award-winning author Elle Cosimano. Okay, so actually maybe it's not very mystery thriller. Maybe it's mostly rom-com with a hint of mystery thriller. I don't know, but either way, I'm very excited for this book and I've had my eye on for a while. I feel like I'll love it. Okay, I thought it was time for a little update in this book, An Ember in the Ashes. It is so good, like so good. I'm getting total 5-star feeling. I don't know if you guys know the feeling, but when you're reading a book and like all you can think about is you are so glad that you found this book and that you're reading it, like that is what I'm feeling. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I never found this book? It is giving me the good old feeling of Hunger Games, Divergent, even a little bit Fourth Wing, like just that fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, like take you to a whole new world feeling, which I love. It's reminding me of like reading when I was a kid. It's so much fun. I feel like I'm learning about this whole new world. I'm taken to this whole new world, and I just haven't gotten that feeling in a while. The beginning of this book was also fantastic. It dropped right into the action, and they keep revealing things about the world, but like not in an overwhelming way, in like a fun way. Like it's very entertaining. I keep learning. And yeah, I just love to be in like a new fictional world like this. And it is fantasy, but it's not very heavy on like fairies or goblins or dragons or anything like that, or at least not yet. It could be like that. That's really not what I'm getting. It's giving dystopian. It's almost like when I was reading it, I wasn't sure if it was fantasy because there wasn't any super like fantastical elements at first, but I did double check. It is fantasy, and there are certain elements that are fantasy, and I'll explain that. And we are following two main characters. We have like a teenage boy and a teenage girl. I feel like they're both like 18 years old, and it goes back and forth. Each chapter is one of their perspectives, and I'm loving each perspective equally. I can tell that they are going to come to a cross, like they're gonna meet at some point, and then I'm assuming they'll both be in each other's chapters, I would guess. But so far, we have the girl whose name is Leia, and she is from the scholar part of the society. The land or the country or whatever is called the Empire, and the scholars are like the lower class in society, sort of like slaves. They can't have jobs, they're not supposed to know how to read. And it starts off with her brother being taken to this prison and her grandparents being murdered in this raid from the Masks. And the Masks are part of the martial part of society, and the marshals are like the leaders of the Empire. They are higher class, they pretty much rule everything. And the Masks are like the most advanced soldiers or military aspect, and they have these silver masks that like form onto their face, like completely attach, and once you become like a full-fledged mask, it can never come off. Like to take it off, you'd have to take off your face. So that is one of like the fantasy elements, like it fully becomes your face. And I'm talking a lot about the masks because the main guy character is currently in a military academy. It is the Empire's greatest military academy, and he is learning to become a mask. He is like on the cusp of graduating as we speak. He's been there for like 15 years of his life, and it's like this ruthless military academy. It's kind of giving Fourth Wing, how they're all in the war college. And you find out right away in his first chapter, he wants to desert. So he wants to leave the masks and like the martial academy because he believes that they're evil pretty much, and he doesn't believe in it. So you have him who's like part of the evil side, but he like wants to be good. And then you have her who's on the good side and she's being persecuted by the evil people. He is currently in the military academy. She is trying to get back her brother from being in prison. And yeah, that is currently where things are. And the world is so interesting. I'm finding it fascinating. Like I said in the beginning, it's just so much fun to like learn about this whole new made up world. Each chapter is so exciting. It's thing after thing after thing, like cliffhangers. Everything's being revealed. It's very fast moving. I don't want to tell you how they are being brought together, but the two characters, like I can tell in like the next chapter or two, they're probably gonna meet. I'm already highly recommending this. I'm probably not gonna give you guys too much more updates. I honestly just wanna like dive into this book, read it, like binge it. So I also don't wanna give away too much of the plot, but yeah, so far so good. I highly recommend. Also, there's another character that I am like foreseeing what's gonna happen with him. Like I feel like because I know Divergent and Hunger Games and this classic YA type of book, like I can see possibly what's gonna happen. It's really good. There is also like, I would say it's pretty violent. Like there is a lot of mentions of murder and rape and abuse and slavery and death and blood. Like it's a pretty gory book. Not like super detailed and gory, but like very dark subject matter. They casually just throw around like, yeah, be careful, you might get raped. So there's that, but I am absolutely loving it, and I'm gonna go read more. Now a few days later, I am back in my apartment, as you can tell, and I have finished this book. It was incredible, so good. It totally captivated me, and it is such an easy 5-star read for me. Like I had no problems with it, no issues. I was thoroughly entertained the entire time. I was never bored, and it honestly, it had my heart racing at some point. So some things I did want to touch upon. I think the last time I talked to you guys, I was saying that there's not that much fantasy elements to it, and there isn't, but since I last spoke to you, the supernatural elements did definitely pick up. There was way more throughout the like last 3/4 of the book, but still not a lot. Nothing crazy, just a bit of supernaturalness, but it is mainly like humans. Like they are humans. They are not fae, they are not vampires, they are nothing like that. They are humans, and there are some supernatural elements. And I am just so happy I read this book because it was exactly what I was looking for in a new fantasy book, in a new fantasy series. I have already ordered the next 3 books in this series because it left me wanting more. I was so on the edge of my seat for like the last 100 pages. There was, of course, like a decently good cliffhanger, or not a cliffhanger, but like you want to read more. So I am so excited to do that. I have the books on the way and I will probably be getting through this series pretty soon. I am so happy that I did this little experiment and picked up a book I had never heard about, because otherwise I would have never picked this book up and I would have never read it and I would have never had another 5-star read. So I am so happy that I did this. I was also saying earlier that this book gave me like Hunger Games vibes, and it does, but like it is nothing like Hunger Games. It just gives me a similar feeling. So like a similar feeling to all those books I mentioned earlier, like the Hunger Games, the Divergent, even a little bit of Fourth Wing, like just that feeling of like an incredible story, like fantasy, fictional world that you can like completely submerge yourself in and just be excited to get into. And that's exactly how I feel with this. It was such a fast-paced story. There was little hints of a slow burn romance, but like it was very well done, and I feel like it's gonna be like a long drawn out thing over the 4 books, which I'm so excited for. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, it's very violent, like I said. It's very dark. There's cruel, evil elements, like there's mentions of torture, child abuse, rape, lots of like violent, just lots of people dying. It's definitely pretty intense with that stuff. Not very detailed or gory, but it doesn't need to be to like still give you the feeling of that. And I did appreciate that it was pretty high stakes, which I don't often find in YA, or sometimes in YA books, YA fantasy books, it just doesn't seem very high stakes. It seems a little bit silly. And even in like ACOTAR, like no one dies. And I feel like that's not the case here. Like I feel like people are dying, which again, I love. It's exciting. It also had some like deeper thought-provoking elements. Like the characters definitely go through some like dark, heavy stuff, like not just action. Like of course there is a lot of action. There is trials and adventure and missions in here, but also like for their own personal growth. I feel like that was a really fun element of this book, and I just loved it. Like I couldn't recommend it enough. I highly recommend, if you haven't read this book, you totally should. I think it's pretty old. Like I think it was published in maybe like 2015, but it still stands the test of time, and I highly recommend. Okay, so that wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. I had so much fun making this video. I feel like it was a little bit of a different style for me. Let me know if you want to see more book shopping from me, or more of me reading books I've never heard of before, because I feel like that is a super fun thing I could try and weave into more videos on my channel, because I know I'm going to be doing it more in my life because it gave me such a great book and such a great read. I also highly recommend you guys try this out for yourself. Just go to your bookstore, go to Barnes & Noble and stroll and browse and just pick up a book that sounds good that you may never have heard anything about. I feel like you'll be pleasantly surprised with the outcome. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more book content, and I'll see you in the next one.